I got a bunch of stickers. SIF was pretty decent. Shout out to all of the people that we were able to meet in lines and stuff like that. Had a bunch of tickets, had a bunch of little pins and stuff. It was a big year for the 60th anniversary, and I thought that for the 60th anniversary, they did a really good job with the logos and such. And I thought they had a great lineup as well. I'll go through the list of the stuff that I have, kind of in no particular order, but a semi-ranking. Like we had mentioned prior, the festival took place at AMC New City Music Box Theater, which is where a lot of the big premieres were happening, as well as the Gene Siskel. And I was able to hit all three for the most part. The last one I was missing was the Gene Siskel Center, and I got to see the No Other Land documentary that's been getting really hyped up by a lot of critics. I believe that might have been the last movie that I saw for the festival as well in a theater. But through screenings and all that stuff, let's break down this list of movies. I know Zach's seen a good amount of them, so we'll just go through them. I'll start off with the ones that I think should be maybe watched at home, because there's a lot of these that none of them are bad. I don't think the festival ever does bad selections. But maybe not ones that I would tell people to go rush out into the theater to go see. I was very excited for The Rule of Jenny Penn, but this is a movie where, man, you feel like you're trapped in there with them. It stars Jeffrey Rush, who is a judge who gets kind of sick, causing him to go into a nursing home. In the nursing home, John Lithgow decides to terrorize people. How long he's been terrorizing people? Who knows? But he does it in particular with this little doll called Jenny Penn, and everyone has to live by her rules. Or they have to lick her butt, which is just the bottom of his hand. He is vile. He is demented. He does all these things to the elderly people who are there. Who is going to stop him? Maybe Jeffrey, maybe not. It's not a bad movie. It's decent. It's got its thriller elements, but at a certain point, you are trapped in there like a lot of these guests. You don't know what to do, and it is a little torturous sometimes because no one wants to listen to them, and it becomes this almost power dynamics between the two of them. I would recommend this one at home. I'm not exactly sure who picked this one up, but it's not bad performances from Rush and Lithgow, and I obviously will have another John Lithgow movie at the top of my list. But if you wanted a decent little horror nursery thriller, The Rule of Jenny Penn. If you're not into dolls, definitely don't go, because they do some very interesting stuff with the doll kind of haunting them as well, that they play with the visuals. But
Annabelle is still the reigning queen of creepy movie dolls, or are we giving that to Megan instead of Jenny Penn?
I mean, Chucky and his bride still at the top for me, but you know, I could see a cinematic universe combining them as well. Some of the other movies that I was able to catch here, I know you saw this at TIFF, The Return. Another one that I know is going to get a theatrical release, but for the most part, I think you could watch it at home. It's supposed to be a take on Odysseus, who is, getting washed up onto the shore after being gone for so long after the Trojan War, and everybody wants to get with his wife. And when she's played by Juliette Binoche, I mean, there's a reason why there was a line out the door. But the queen is waiting for the king, so much so that when he returns, will they even remember what he looks like? His son definitely doesn't. And I almost didn't even recognize the son, because Charlie Plummer, my boy's grown now.
Boy's a man.
He is swole. He is there. He is trying to avenge his father, who he doesn't even know. And even Ralph Fiennes comes in looking as bulky as he can be. Again, Ralph Fiennes will be in a bigger selection that I'm going to mention later on, but it's an okay movie.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't hate it. Again, it's another one of those where I'm not giving it a negative review, but I wouldn't say it's one that you need to rush out to the theaters to go see. I guess the bigger fan you are of the story, maybe you'd like it, but then at the same time, it may be missing things.
Yeah. Did they make you read Homer in school? I had to read the Odyssey in high school.
If they did, I probably Sparks knows that bad boy, but
yeah. I mean, I never really connected to that story. Like, it is a, epic tale that feels so distant from us that it just doesn't feel like real in lots of ways, and it is mythic also, so obviously there's elements of that. But I thought one of the things that was interesting is how Umberto Pasolini was able to kind of base this in real places, in the idea of like missing somebody who's been gone for a long time and not being sure when they'll return, in sort of the nervousness around like, how will they think of me after I've done these things? Like it's really centered in like very relatable ideas, and it takes this like huge epic tale, Homer's tale, and just focuses on like the return, the title of the movie, the end of his journey. So I think it's cool how it's able to make a Greek epic tale this small, intimate
Personal
story.
Yeah,
but it is also a little bit like just languid and not really exciting, right?
Beautiful locations.
Yeah.
But it's also shot like it's lit by studio lights, but it's not.
Yeah.
It could just be the format that they shot it in, especially when you're in the sequence right here where, it's time for him and his big return to take out everybody else who was kind of in his way, who was trying to take his wife. And it's cool. He's cool. They're both great actors. I want to, there's a lot of unspoken things where they're like, where is my husband? And you're like, she's got to know, bro. This was your man. You got to know that that's him.
Yeah.
But I think it could have been a little bit of a better movie. And maybe it could be adding a lot of the elements that were cut out from the original story. But again, not a bad one, but I would say one to just wait till it comes out at home. I think it's still worth catching the story. Yeah. And the shootout scene was kind of decent.
Yeah. Unless you just want to see Ralph Fiennes hang dong on the biggest screen possible. Like that's there for you as well. But yeah, you could probably wait for this one.
That one should be coming out December 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So keep that one on the horizon in case you did want to see it in theaters. Some other really quick mentions here would be Toxic, a movie about a bunch of young girls who really want to make it into modeling, but they live in this like very small European town, and they are willing to order tapeworms offline in order to be able to get skinnier. Some of them are willing to raise funds in whatever way they can. I thought it was an interesting portrayal of what they're willing to do to be able to get out of this town, and how those towns are also exploited by modeling agencies that come in because they know who's really taking care of these kids, who's watching over them. We can take them to New York. No one's going to do anything about it. It's shot in a very gritty way. These girls will fight and the camera's in there with them, like almost trying to get a punch or two in. So if it interests you, there's a trailer out for it as well. Put this one on your radar. Another one that I found pretty interesting was this very indie movie. I believe it hails from Canada, about a documentarian who wants to go out and film all of these museums, all of these like just little pockets all throughout Canada where people are trying to explain things to you, be it creation or be it flags, be it airplanes. She just wants to see how people are describing different stuff, while the movie itself is also trying to describe her journey and what she's going through. I found it to be a really interesting story, even though everyone talks in a very almost monotone way. There's a certain point where a character comes up to them and asks, "What are you guys doing?" "We're filming a movie about museums." "That doesn't sound interesting." "Well, it's really how the museums represent da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da." She's like, "That sounds a lot better." Very much in that indie spirit, but I dug what it was going for. And I thought it was an interesting push and pull about what happens when you have your art that you're trying to display and how far you're willing to go into your work before you put yourself forward as well. So a good little indie film. I know it's been playing at some other festivals as well. Check this one out if you're interested. A documentary that stood out to me when I first heard its synopsis was Slice of Life, the American Dream in Former Pizza Huts.
You got to love a film title that includes some punctuation in it. They've got periods after American Dream and former Pizza
Everything.
Huts.
It's a bunch of Pizza Huts that are no longer Pizza Huts, that have been taken over by churches, barbecue spots, AA meetings, all these different things. In particular, they all stand out because they have the hut. All of these buildings were created with the hut. So you get a little bit of the backstory of Pizza Hut, and then you get all of these random side stories about all of the people who have now taken over these spots and the such, and how they're trying to create their businesses. And it was interesting. I think it could have gone a little bit more in depth, either into the history of Pizza Hut, or, there are particular stories that they choose mainly because of the struggles that they've gone through. Like there's no one's getting chosen if there isn't trauma involved or an uphill battle of some sort. But an interesting perspective to take. There is a burger movie, and I'm blanking on what it was, from Hot Docs last year. That is one that I would highly recommend. I mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's about a Canadian burger shop. And it was like a franchise that a bunch of, I think, Lebanese people were
the
just
Lebanese Burger Mafia.
Hell yeah. Thank you, sir. Lebanese Burger Mafia. Very similar to this. Also going through all of those franchise spots and how it was a bunch of immigrants just surviving off of this one secret patty formula. Check that one out if a movie like this interests you. But this one should be coming out soon because I know it's been playing at a lot of film festivals as well. One that I know you guys.
Any former Pizza Huts around you that have been remodeled? I know you have the famous defunct Rainforest Cafe that they tried to turn into a dispensary, but there's a former Burger King near me that's now my bank.
That's fire. Do they give you a crown after you make a deposit?
They should.
They should. I think the closest one was the barbecue spot. I think it was Dickie's Barbecue. I could be blanking on that, but I think that one was up near Wisconsin, and it looked pretty good. His story was pretty touching on how like he put it all on the line for this barbecue, and for the most part, he still made it through. So I might have to go stop at that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. Another one that I know you guys caught at TIFF and should be coming out very soon through Amazon Prime is Unstoppable, the story of the famous wrestler who made it all the way to the national championships, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Anthony Robles, who became a college wrestling champion despite only being born with one leg.
If you're on Facebook, you saw that video was everywhere.
Yeah, that went certified platinum viral on social media.
And it's a great story. Like, even with this not being told in the best way possible, I think it's enough for a lot of people to be able to resonate with his story. The way that it's shot is that you got a dude, Jarrell, playing him for most of the dramatic scenes. And then when he's like doing the wrestling or doing a lot of the training, I was like, how did they like CGI out the leg? Like, it was in particular the way that the short, like the pant leg would still be floating. I was like, how did they get that done?
That's the thing, because it's like, it's not just that, like, obviously he could just wear like a green screen sock and they could, but it's the physicality of it too. The performing the wrestling moves, flipping over each other and stuff like that. It is a really incredibly put together film in some ways. In other ways, it kind of looks anonymous in like every other movie, but just how they're able to recreate these wrestling matches, or even some of the bits where he's training. Like there's a whole sequence where he's running up a mountain that is just that's incredible to watch, the physicality of that performance and Jarrell Jerome in it, who is pretty remarkable.
Turns out the main guy, Anthony Robles, was his double. Anytime he's wrestling, it's Anthony. Anytime he's doing a lot of the stunts, it's Anthony. I was like, that makes so much more sense. I was like, I know y'all did not have the budget after getting J-Lo to be able to invest all that on the leg there. It is split between two things, and that is his wrestling career and what college he's going to go to, and then his home life. Jennifer Lopez plays his mom, and she looks a lot like the real life mom when they show you the pictures towards the end, her sleeve, all of that stuff. And Bobby Cannavale, who's supposed to play his
stepdad. Yeah.
He's good in it. Like, my man comes in. I've never seen a bad Bobby role. He's definitely playing it up, obviously, for the character that he's supposed to be. But it's clashing between that, like, I don't want to say full misery porn movie, but it's like there's so much focus on the family, which isn't bad. But like, explain to me the wrestling. Explain to me like the goals that you have. I want to know more about that. There's a big element to all of the people that he's competing with in order to be able to make it into the school where Don Cheadle's the coach. And Don Cheadle has this one line where it's like, I doubted you at one point, but you've proved me wrong. When'd you doubt him, boy? Like, you gave him the opportunity to go there. All of the people who are his his wrestling group, they're like, hey, we believe in you. I was like, when? I never saw y'all interact that much except for one of the characters. I wanted to see more in depth to that. There's a neighbor across the street who gets into trouble. What was his name? Manny? What else happened to Manny? Like, there's too much left open because they're so focused on the Bobby Cannavale story and this uphill battle of like, you don't take care of my mom or even me the way that you should. And that's it's not a bad element to cover. I get that. But I can see that being the main selling point, as if his leg missing wasn't enough. It's look at what else was missing in his family. The love.
Right. You mentioned that Anthony Robles is involved in the film as a stunt double, and I'm sure was consultant for a lot of things as well.
Has to be.
I wonder if some of that is just maybe being too close to the production, he emphasizing the role that his mom had, or even if it's partly they got Jennifer Lopez and they're like, well, we got to give her something to do in this movie.
And that's where it gets a little weird, bro. That's where it gets a little weird, right? Because we know who the producers are for this. It's Matt Damon and a man named Ben Affleck. This is their company, where they already made that Nike movie Air through this, what is it, the Equal Artists, whatever it is that they keep
Equity
promoting.
Artists, something like that.
It's the first thing that pops out. But I am looking at it sideways, right? When you are the producers of this movie, you give Jennifer Lopez a role. She's overly in the movie. I'm not saying that she's bad. She's not in bad territory, but she's definitely not aiming for this Oscar nomination that she wants.
She might be aiming for it, but she's not going to get it.
She's definitely aiming for it. There's no doubt about that. And it's not a full miss, but at the same time, it's like you're definitely highlighting her when I want to see more about the Anthony. The movie ends, and the first thing that they push to you is Nike. Nike signed him for this stuff. And I'm like, bro, is this a secret Nike ad? How many of these equity movies are going to be about Nike, bro? And at that point, that's where I was just like, okay, it's a fine story about him, but there is still a better story to be told at some point for Anthony. But again, I love Jarrell. He's never bad in these movies. Really good. Just facial expressions for the turmoil that he's going through, not just with the physicality of it, but also at home when he's got those fights that he's having with Bobby. And again, I think a lot of people are going to resonate with this. It's coming out to Prime, but it leaves me more excited for The Fire Inside, which I know you guys caught. And I think you can admit, sounds like the better movie, bro. Because that in the trailer alone sounds like you're getting to see them as the artist, the actual boxer.
Yeah, not only can you compare those two movies, as in they're like underdog sports movies that sort of have these kind of by the numbers stories, but other elements of. I went directly from my screening of Unstoppable to my screening of The Fire Inside, so I had no choice but to compare them.
Back to back.
The Fire Inside's just the better movie, but that doesn't mean that Unstoppable isn't enjoyable. We both ended up giving it 3 stars. I think that's like perfectly fair for this movie.
That's not bad.
It's going to be a solid streaming hit, I think.
And that should be on Prime by December, I believe. So definitely give that one a watch. One of the documentaries I know you were interested in, and it's because it's about a Republican who was like the only one to go up against Donald Trump for the January 6th stuff, enticing, really gripping things. Until you read that it's the Hot Tub Time Machine director making a documentary because this Republican politician thinks Hot Tub Time Machine is the greatest movie of all time. And so these two people who don't really like each other are making this documentary focusing on the court case and where they want to indict Trump on inciting the riot. And bro, the director hates making this movie. I don't like every time this guy is talking, right? I know he's the Republican in the movie, but he's kind of showcasing to you like, hey, I'm willing to call out someone on my side. The entire time, the documentarian is calling him an idiot for taking this. Like, what? You just saw Hot Tub Time Machine? You're going to take, like, you could take this, bro? There are moments where he's egging him on, where you get to learn about his past, why he's into politics, how he saved a woman who was getting stabbed by a knife, and he had all her blood on her. And he keeps talking to the third person because it's so traumatic for him. He goes, you know, when you survive something like that, when you go something through that. And the documentarian is spending the whole time trying to dunk on him. He goes, why are you speaking to third person? That's like so weird. And he has to respond with like, well, yeah, it's, I guess, a way for me to therapeutically protect myself. And the whole documentary, I'm like, bro, this is a very fascinating story of two people on opposing aisles coming together. But it begins with this man going, I know you hate me and you would never be talking to me in any other way. And I think it's an interesting look, but I think it's a bad look for the documentarian. Even the after credits scene, without spoiling it here, makes him look like a chump. I don't even know why he kept that in there. It's like this behind the scenes bit about the type of water bottle that he needs. And it ain't the politician asking for a specific water bottle. It's the director. Other than that, it goes case by case for everything that he had to go through, where his whole party said, bro, if one of us is doing something, none of us can go against them. And I think that's a fascinating take when looking at politics, where when we're in such a two-party system, are you willing to go with everything that your party is doing? I very much, I'm of the belief that a lot of people don't support their party because of the good they do. They're just against what they think the bad stuff that's happening on the other side. And so much so that they're willing to look past when the bad stuff happens to their own party. And I think you get a very much a person who is into politics because they care for it, even if they're on the opposing side of things, but is willing to hear other people out. I think you'll like it. I think you'll like a lot of the discussions that they have in there. There's a lot of ribbing to be made for this man, but I just found a lot of the stuff with the director, who's a comedic director, to be a little too edgy. And I was confused by that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an intriguing premise, is why I wanted to see this documentary. But part of the intrigue is like, what is it going to look like for Steve Pink to try his hand at a more serious film, given what his filmography was? And, you know, there's a lot of directors who insert themselves into documentaries. And I think one of the best ones that we saw in terms of like the comedic insertions of oneself was the Untitled Amazing Jonathan documentary, right? Yeah,
yes.
like there's a way to do it where you're not like taking focus away from the subject or
belittling the subject.
Yeah, and I guess unfortunately it sounds like this isn't the case here.
Yeah, it's not the worst, but it's like 40% of the movie should not be him like interrupting him when he's talking about like, yo, my family after standing up against Trump, they send me death threats. They don't they continue sending me the Christmas cards, but it's not to invite us. It's to say how sad they are that they're related to me. He's like, oh yeah, and that hurt. Maybe you shouldn't be a Republican. I'm like, bro, that is not the time or the place when he's open. Damn, bro. I don't know. But still a fascinating take for everything that happened there. So keep that one on your radar if you are interested in. Very short too, 88 minutes. Another one that's kind of a mix of the two is this one called Faruk, where it's a guy named Faruk playing Faruk because his daughter made the movie. And she made the movie based off this landlord who can't keep up with everything that's changing in this small town. So the movie is kind of what he's going through, but instead of it being a documentary, she takes what's happening to him and hires actors. Except Faruk still plays Faruk. So she's remaking all of these like meetings that they're having, and he's just fallen so far behind. They're moving with all these leases and new rules and all this different stuff. But she also uses the documentary to kind of punk her father in order to get a good performance out of him. She's reenacting things so that he can finally open up the way he couldn't in the real meeting, or maybe hit him with something else that he wasn't expecting. But she plays him at the end of this movie, bro. That's all I'm going to leave it with. There is a very fourth wall meta bit where in order for her to say things to her dad, she's scripting scenes for the actors playing real people to say it to her. If that sounds fascinating to you, it is a little intriguing, but just know that a majority of the movie is just reenactments of this landlord stuff that isn't able to work out. And they'll film it as a scene, and then they'll film a third camera capturing the set of the reenactment of the scene because she didn't want to shoot a documentary. We're doing so many of these at this point. I think I have another one on the list as well that's doing this bit where instead of just it being a documentary, you got to add a little flair to it. But again, the way she plays him at the end, damn. If you ever needed to tell your parents something, just say you're filming a documentary and say it through the documentary, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny how we're getting so many of these documentaries that deal with elements of like metafiction. I think, we talked about Four Daughters, which was a Academy Award nominee last year. And
best that does example. Thank you for
exactly. That's probably the highlight of that style. But it's always compelling to kind of like play with those lines between narrative and doc.
Yeah, always intriguing. But sometimes it's like, you had to do Faruk like that.
Yeah.
But that one is a hybrid. Should be coming out soon. Another one that should be coming out around December, but I feel like I'm still watching it, man.
Didn't work for you?
Look, he's our boy. I get it, but the end.
Joshua Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Could not get to the end faster. I'm not going to diss it because I am aware when something is aiming for a goal, has a lot of parallels, is using its form to be able to get into certain aspects of these characters, which are all brought upon by really great performances from Toni Collette. George McKay is very good in here. Almost reached my Harris Dickinson level. Michael Shannon, fantastic. Moses Ingram, really good. But damn, it's a lot to sit through, man. To remind me what resonated with you, because to me, I know you didn't like the music from Joker Folie à Deux, but there was some set pieces in this, bro, where I was like, oh my gosh, another song. And there was something that I liked.
Yeah. No, look, so this is a weird musical because this is like a almost
Capital
Sondheim style musical in points where there's not really like catchy hooks. It's a lot of like singing or talking through ideas in song, strange rhyme schemes and stuff like that. And something else that I think is interesting in Joshua Oppenheimer's approach here is that the songs often don't really reach a climax. There's not like a big emotional release. He doesn't pull in for like the Anne Hathaway and Les Miserables close up to sell a moment. And to me, I thought all of that was in service of what this movie's trying to say about these characters, because this is a story about a family living in a bunker after the end of society, sort of like trying to keep living optimistically, right? Like they're trying to make the best of what they've got, but what they have is, you know, their great fortune that they amassed during the time before the end of the world, and, you know, the memories of what they did to contribute to the end of the world. So this is ultimately a movie to me that's about denialism and the way that people often don't want to take responsibility for their actions, particularly when it comes to these bigger global issues, when it comes to the role that people who are involved in, you know,
energy
in oil companies have in pollution and stuff like that, right? Like it's I think it speaks to a certain brand of how elites inoculate themselves from the problems they create, and that the way that we often try to create our own reality, as Michael Shannon does pretty hilariously in this movie. So all that really spoke to me. I get it. It does kind of stay in a place and not really give you much. To me, like I liked the tension of it, and I liked the discomfort in their refusal to kind of get into what's wrong with them, right? Like they don't want to even entertain the ugliness of the reality.
Yeah. They're rewriting their whole story, the whole kind of meta-ness of it breaking into song, but then it also being they want to write their ending. It's all fascinating stuff, and that's why I'm torn between it, because I like a lot of what it's covering. There's not a bad performance in this. I don't even think the music is that terrible. Just none of it enticed me.
I get that.
None of it like really worked for me in a way where it was like I felt it was a little boring at times, but this idea of wanting to rewrite your story so that you can set place like, hey, I was the lesser of two evils. Sure, I was a part of the problem, but at the same time, I wasn't as bad as they were over there. And then you get to the personal side of it with a lot of the other people who are in the bunker as well. Again, all really good performances. Probably the doctor was the one who they least focused on. And it's a really long movie for him to just be in like a couple scenes. But with who would have been Tilda's friend, who kind of babies our main character of what's his name, McKay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of backstory there, which again, I'm curious to revisit it, knowing all of the revelations and just the character moments that they go through to see how that plays back. But yeah, at 148 minutes, it was an early screening as well. I'm not gonna, Joshua Oppenheimer is definitely taking a lot of what he learned with documentaries and the form and applying it here in a way where I'm obviously going to give him the benefit of the doubt. While it didn't work for me as a first watch, I know that he didn't skimp out on any of the story elements, especially when it comes to like George McKay's portrayal and what you're supposed to assume for the 20-something years that he's been in there, the way he reacts to certain things, the way that he's already set up the rules. He's very good in this. I thought George McKay was excellent in this movie. Maybe if it was trimmed down a bit more, it would have been more accessible. I think it's just going to be a very hard movie to pitch to people as it rolls out into theaters.
And that's the thing. I left this movie being like, I really enjoyed this and I don't want to recommend it to anybody. It's
one of those, yeah.
Yeah, it's a particular brand. And I also feel like it's not really going to work for people who aren't very familiar with lots of musicals. Like this is not like a Broadway style, jukebox musical or adaptation of Lion King for the stage. Yeah, it's really, it feels experimental in the way that it's going about it. I don't know. I just think there's a lot of fascinating ideas there, and I kept thinking about it. I also want to revisit it, and maybe you'll get a little more on the revisit, but yeah. I ended up going pretty high on this. I went 4 stars, but I don't think anybody else I know went that high on this movie.
Yeah, I'm not as negative as everybody else for sure, because it wasn't as enjoyable for me, but I liked a lot of the story. I like learning more about Tilda Swinton behind the scenes, the way that they interact with each other. All those moments were really good to me about like who is disrupting what we have going on here. It reminded me a lot of, and it wasn't George McKay, it would have been Harris Dickinson, where they get lost in the boat with all the rich people.
Triangle of Sadness. Yeah, this movie kind of feels like when the boat starts going into chaos, but for 2.5 hours.
How are you going to rebuild society? Exactly. And like who's going to be the one in control? Who's still the one owning the story and such?
Totally.
And yeah, I have another thing also with Michael Shannon and how he was approaching everything, where again, there's a lot of fascinating stuff in there, but damn, is it hard to recommend. Whopping 2-hour musical where my man goes like this, he does some
with no good songs. Yeah. You were shouting out the performances. Shout out Moses Ingram, man. I think she comes in and really brings light to this movie.
Dude, there was a moment, and oh yeah, Lady in the Lake is on here. They are putting clothes on her, and it's like this dress, and I'm like, bro, isn't that the beginning of Lady in the Lake? Immediately I recognize where she was from because they do the same thing on Lady in the Lake. But she's very good in this as well. But yeah, keep this one on the horizon if you are interested in a story like that. It's not the first musical we're going to mention in here, but before we move out of it, Joshua Oppenheimer, great documentaries. Definitely check them out. They're so good. It's why I will be revisiting The End a second time. See what else I can get out of it. And that should be coming out, I think, December-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, around Christmas, I think.
Yeah. Another slew of documentaries that we have over here to go through, because a lot of these really play off of each other. My Stolen Planet is a documentary that premiered at Hot Docs, and it's pretty much talking about this documentarian who finds a lot of film reels from people who lost them, that were never developed. And then when she gets her stuff stolen because of everything that's happening in Iran and all the turmoil with the women over there, she realizes like, oh, I could be finding people's lost films just like my films keep getting taken away from me. And how these little edits that she has when she develops all of that lost footage ends up becoming what she considers these stolen planets, these memories that were taken away from people. So it's told in a very fascinating way. I doubled that up also with another documentary that won, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Award. And it is about a photographer. Why can I not find it as I had it over here? A Photographic Memory. It is about a filmmaker who is the daughter of this really big photographer who shot for Gordon Parks, interviewed all these people. But because she never got to meet her mom, she's now developing all of her footage, all of her diary entries, all these different things, and almost has a whole conversation with her. And is able to figure out who her mother was and also herself by going through all of her archives. And because she's the same age of her mother when she met all these people, when she goes to meet them, they think she's like a ghost. So it's a very fascinating documentary. Again, with a lot of these that are dealing with this idea of film and the memories that those things contain in order to be able to kind of be a storybook or a perspective that you never knew of a person. Another really good one, and has a very, very great ending to it as well. Let me see, what's the other documentary that I had on this list? A little bit different, but probably maybe my top documentary of the fest, as I look through my list right here, is this one called Life and Other Problems. It's a documentary about a giraffe that they're going to put down because they got no more room for it at the zoo. And it causes people to go crazy. It's a true story where people were
I'm upset just hearing about it right now.
The whole thing goes, okay, so if a giraffe doesn't count, where do we start saying, hey, we have no place for this human? Hey, we have no place for this other thing. And the guy decides to answer this question about the meaning of this giraffe and whether it should be killed by studying molecular biology. At what point do molecules have rights over other people? It is that type of documentary where he's going through all of it. And it reminds me a lot of this one from South by last year called Ark of Oblivion, where he wants to store everything in an ark that deals with data. And instead of just saying what should fit into the ark, what memories should we take with us? The man starts going, what's the best hard drive? What is the best storage system? Is it a floppy disk? Is it this? He ends up going all the way to DNA. He goes, human DNA in reality is a storage device. That is what the man does in this by not just explaining whether the giraffe should have been alive, should have been kept around. He starts explaining the meaning of life. And I think if you liked Ark of Oblivion, or if you haven't heard of that one, put both of those as a double feature right there. Ark of Oblivion and Life and Other Problems, in terms of just really how we look at it, the importance of it.
Nice.
And I think it gets into the realm of you remember Gunda, where the director was pretty much if we can't respect the pigs of this world who feel pain, how are we going to be able to respect each other as humans? But it's interesting because he doesn't push away from the zoo's mentality of it, which is it is a cycle of life and people need to see it. But at what point is it the cycle of life and not just something that you are predisposing because the zoo is locking them up? Right. Interesting questions in there. And he covers a lot of people, different languages, all of the such. As of right now, might be my favorite documentary from the festival.
Nice. Shout out Kyle Flynn in our live stream, who said that they enjoyed Arc of Oblivion. They should probably check out Life and Other Problems as well. Add it to the watch list.
Pretty good stuff there. Let me see. Moving up a little higher, I'll give a shout out to another Chicago pick over here called Transplant. I was about to say, did they got a picture for this? Transplant is about a young up-and-coming surgeon who starts working underneath one of the biggest surgeons there at the, what's it called? Cut over here to this one. The hospital, who's supposed to kind of give him like the cosign so that he could be up next. But little does he realize that Bill Camp, who's playing this other surgeon, is kind of using him because he can't do surgeries the same way that he used to. So it's this push and pull of like, how long are you going to be able to be under his wing? And are you the one being used for a purpose or being used because this guy can't do it anymore? Jason Park previously did a movie at Chicago that played called BJ's Mobile Gift Shop, where it's literally a dude in Chicago who walks around and like a convenience store and sells you stuff. Also a really great pick that I would recommend. And I'm glad to see his feature, which did pretty well over at Chicago.
Very cool.
Getting into some of the international picks, bro. Vermiglio. This is Italy's submission, and it ended up winning the big award at Chicago.
Wow, okay.
You are dropped here. I think early 1940s, in where a lot of the soldiers are coming back from the war, and the town's kind of split between, are they like scumbags who ran away, or are they people who just did not want to fight the war that they did not want to be in? And in particular, you follow this family where the father is the school teacher. And when I say school teacher, I'm talking about he's teaching kindergarten to 12th grade all in one room. And he's very harsh on his kids, in particular, the main one, who you see right there in the back, who ends up forming a relationship with one of the soldiers who comes back. And it's a very subtle movie. I can definitely see why Italy's submitting this one, and I think has a very high chance of being one of the 5 to get selected, not just off the win for the Gold Hugo, but because it's a very lived-in world. It is a very patiently told story. You're in the thick of the snow of it, and it spans through a lot of the characters and what they're dealing with, and in particular has a lot of lines that have resonated with me in terms of like, when do you give someone hope, and when do you take away that hope, even though they don't like deserve it? And I thought it worked really well. Really strong performances, and should be coming out soon, if I'm not mistaken. Again,
yeah, I mean, it'll at least do it. It'll at least do its normal like Oscar qualifying run in big cities before the end of the year in order to qualify for the Oscars. But yeah, I think they are trying to put this one out before the end of 2024. I've been getting some emails about it.
A couple of other ones to go through quickly was My Sunshine, the story of 2 kids, one in particular who wants to become a figure skater after you think he's flirting with the girl, when in reality he's flirting with that sport. He wants to really get into it. But the problem comes when the coach, who's kind of helping both of them out, gets outed because he is gay. I mean, he's a figure skater. And it's kind of the story of the passions that they strive for, as well as the secrets that they have to keep. It's beautifully shot because, I mean, the title is My Sunshine, and it feels, as you see right up there, like everything is lit through the sun when they're practicing skating, either indoors or outdoors. It just has this like haze to it. I think all the performances are really good, especially from the kids. They're very subtle. A lot of it is not even done with them speaking, but just like staring at each other. I want to say this was someone's submission, but either way, it was one of the top international selections that was there, alongside Grand Tour. This one directing at Cannes, then one directing at Chicago, one editing at Chicago. And it is a sprawling tale. I almost missed this one because I knew it was 2 hours, black and white film, with an interesting premise that is really just the template of it. You got this dude who's running away because his fiance really wants to be with him, and I think he's done with her. The whole first half is his grand tour, something that people really did back in the day, where they would just sprawl throughout Asia and visit all these different places. And considering the director's movies, Miguel Gomez's films that he's done in the past, he really does use kind of like, the best way I can describe it, like, you know, the meme with the Clintons, but like, go bomb this so that we can be back together again. This is this couple. He's going through a tour of everything in Asia, doesn't care what's in his way, just because he's kind of sad. And the movie does this interesting thing where in the first half, where you're following him before you follow her in the second half, trying to find him, is that it splices present day, almost documentary footage. The director went on his own grand tour right after COVID and shot all of the present areas where these two would end up going in the early 1900s, in order to kind of contrast how do you put it? He said, showing the present is showing their future and what they did as they went through all of these areas. It's a very slow film. It almost kind of tells you like, hey, all of these beautiful imagery of Asia, they're almost responsible for kind of like co-opting all of it and just using it as their background, their playground pretty much. But the second half, when the actress comes in, bro, she is a firecracker. She comes in and has a very particular laugh. That is all I heard going into the movie, and damn does it stand out. She is a delight. I understand why the guy was running away from her. But like, damn, like she was kind of funny. Again, this one has been sweeping a lot of awards, and I can definitely see this one being one that is going to be on the short list. Grand Tour, if you're interested in it, it's very slowly paced. But to me, it kind of showcases the
number one thing I heard out of it.
Yeah, it does showcase to you how two people can just, use Asia as their playground as they're running away from each other.
Interesting.
And leaving behind all these extra things. That was my takeaway from it. But again, you can also just see it as, two lovers running away and it just being their backdrop. But I think when you look at Miguel Gomez's films, especially previous ones that played at the festival, it's like a backdrop that he tends to use. How do you focus on one story and slightly show the repercussions of what happens for these people? Grand Tour.
Nice.
Also, like I said, won a couple.
A big winner at Cannes this year.
One that I know you caught at New York and was one of my final films, Coming a Guinea Fowl.
Let's talk about it.
I like
this one's a knockout.
The more and more I think about it, the more I like it. I left the screening, and in particular, there was a couple of people who felt it was a little too open-ended, that it wasn't really wrapping it up all in one bit. And this is one of those movies where I could say that is kind of the purpose of it. And I would even argue does to a degree. It's just maybe not as satisfying to get an answer like the characters wanted in this movie. Really, the setting, as you see right here, because I had not seen a picture of the outfit she's actually wearing.
Yeah, she's got like a Missy Elliott outfit almost on.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
She finds her uncle dead on the road. And she recoups with her cousin to figure out what they're going to do with it. And it really is a movie about mourning. It won a special jury award for its cast, for its ensemble, and how they tackled grief. Because after they figure out what to do with the body, it really is the memorial for him, how they grieve for him, and everybody has to live in the same house. And it's how the family starts uncovering the past and everyone's interactions with the uncle.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's artsy. It does have its artsy elements to it. It's a very patient film as well. But I think all of those bits, especially with how they bring the title into play, I don't know, it kind of worked very well for me. I know it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I thought the performances were very anchored, especially if you've ever seen people who have dealt with this subject matter, and how a lot of people want to keep it a secret and a lot of people want to put it on the forefront. And how a lot of people maybe want to tell you to just shut up because it's not something that's going to benefit the family. And I thought it was outstanding.
Yeah, to me, this was watching a pot of water boil on the stove, where at first you're kind of like waiting to get those little bits of bubbles and simmer. Like there's a little bit of like setting the table and setting the scene. And I compared the beginning of this film to Shiva Baby, because it's also these examinations of distant family members coming together for this period of mourning that has all these like real cultural nuances to it. In Shiva Baby, it's, like middle-class American Jews. It's in this film, it's middle-class Zambians. And, it's kind of humorous for the first half. It's really about like the weird interactions between these family and the nuances of how they grieve in particular. But then like as it starts to simmer and bubble up and these things that get dredged up from the past come to the forefront, it really is this fascinating examination of how families deal with upsetting elements and what it's like when you have to contend with drama or bad actions that occur between family members. And I thought it was a really excellent look at just sort of patriarchal dominance, and as well as the ways in which younger generations are often told to be respectful and mind their own business and not really make a fuss. And I don't know, I thought this was a really excellent film, and as you mentioned, like it just kind of burrows into your brain and gets better the more you think about it.
Yeah, especially like with the matriarchs in the movie, because a big part of it is like, who knows what's happening in the family,
right?
Before you realize, like, well, how long has it been happening in the family? It's not just for them. It's, a generation that went through it and is now imposing, hey, this is how we got through it. You have to do the same thing. Who's going to be the guinea fowl who gives the warning, as they explained?
Yeah.
But even in the way that it's told, like you're saying, there's some very funny elements at the beginning. They play with some dream sequences, but it's also the approach of, like, you have the father figure who has a hilarious scene where he's just on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And then him being on the phone the second time around is some of the most heartbreaking stuff, because he cannot ask the question that he wants to face. He can only do it through that medium. Very, very good movie. A24, bro. I don't know what they're doing with this rollout, though, because this was a last minute addition to our press schedule. I know for you guys, it was like only one showing of it that they had for I think New York and maybe even TIFF. I don't know, man. I don't know the date on this. The A24 sometimes has those movies that are really good, but they under the silver lake them. Like, they're just right there. They're available for you to find, but are you going to get it? It was literally 12 hours before the press screening for this one was up. But hey, shout out our press people over here at Allied. They made sure we got the public screening, so I got to see it with the crowd. Which, again, I think to the mainstream audience, they may feel it's a little too artsy. But I think, like you said, it burrows in your brain to the point that hopefully some of the performances and the sequences that happen here stick with you.
Yeah. And I thought the ending was killer. Like, I get feeling like it could be a little bit ambiguous, but I think the movie says everything it needs to say.
Agreed. Keep that one on your radar. On Becoming a Guinea Fowl.
Yeah. I went a full 4 stars on it.
Really? Yeah. I haven't submitted mine yet, but I was definitely cleared 3.5. I was wondering how much more it was going to stick for the 4 stars. I might go 4 as well. Where am I at? 2 other international films to cover here. One is titled A Quiet Son. The actual Quiet Son won the Best Actor award. And I thought he did a pretty good job, because it's about a father whose son starts getting radicalized by these, like, skinheads. And interestingly enough, soccer. He just thinks they're ultras, Dad. They're just really into soccer stuff. But in reality, they're out there and they are, pushing up against a lot of the political stuff that's there. They are terrorizing the town. They are graffitiing, doing all these different things. And it really is the father's kind of perspective of, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to risk everything for my son? How can I, like, what can you do? I think it does fall into the level of its approach being, hey, when we blame the parents when a kid does something, maybe sometimes it is out of the parents' control. I did feel a little bit of that, because there's a very big monologue that happens about, like, what else was I supposed to do? But at the same time, I think it's also asking other questions, like, at what point does a soccer stadium really become a hub, bro? You know this more than I do, but there's a sequence here that happens, as you can see there from the thumbnail, where they are at the soccer game. They think they're going out to spend time as a family. Hey, you're going to stop dealing with all of these chumps that are out there? Sure, let's go to the soccer game. Dummy forgets. Where do you think he met them? And if you're meeting people at that place, how is that not the epicenter to it? And what do you do? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, that is the rally place almost.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm saying we got to get rid of soccer, bro. Like, that is just an epidemic.
It is a force of hate and evil. No. It sounds fascinating. I'm really interested in it. And shout out our buddy Ewan. I see he also
really liked it.
Yeah.
He dealt with ultras probably, bro, because this is that next level there. But no, a really good movie, solid performances, and I'm curious to know your take once you see it.
Definitely.
Another one that I thought was just a little bit higher than this one. I believe this may be a submission as well. Once the submission comes out, we'll be able to tell you, we covered them on the podcast. The Sparrow in the Chimney, a very, very interesting look at a family who's taken over the mother's home. The mother clearly, they're not given the best upbringing, but you have one particular sister right here who you see on the poster, who is living there with her family. When her sister comes in and starts kind of moving in, and it's all the turmoil that's happening. She's got a daughter who's kind of very flirty as she's coming of age. They've got a maid who lives in the guest house that they joke about was probably the mom's place to leave her lovers, and maybe it's one of their lovers. There's all of these secrets that the family keeps as they're living together in this place that I think make it worth a rewatch once you see who knows what or who has what over the other person. But it very much is about trauma, generational trauma, and this idea of like they all dealt with the mom in a different way, and thus they see the place in a different way. And at what point is it not just the person who brought you up, but the place in where they brought you up? And while they may be gone, are you still stuck in the same place with all those memories? I thought it was fascinating. The more and more I think about it, the higher it goes up on my list. So this is right at the bit before I get into my top picks. But it keeps going on up there. I would highly recommend this one. I really like movies where you're just in one setting and you've got all these people interacting with each other. You practically have three families, and they've all got their own secrets, their own goals, and it works really well. Really good ensemble.
And this is a Swiss movie, I believe, from Switzerland.
Believe so. Could be. Yeah, Switzerland.
Yeah, in German.
The language is German. So a lot of those this year as well, right? One of the next ones that I got coming up is technically one with a French director with taking place in Mexico.
Yo, I have to get your thoughts on this. Oh, man.
Where do I even begin?
Emilia Perez
was not on my radar to catch at the festival because I knew it was going to come out right away, but you tuned in after New York and you said, nah, this is one you got to see with a crowd. And you were telling me all these crazy things about it. And you were like, it's exhilarating. It's got all these different things. And I'm like, would you recommend it? And you said, I don't know. And I was like, okay, that's making me even more interested. Music Box has a screening with my pass. I'm able to go. It did not sell out. I was able to get tickets, get there right at the end.
Cool.
Right before start time, I get to see it at the beautiful Music Box Theater. And what the hell, bro? What?
Yeah.
What?
No, I mean, we got to use one of our least favorite phrases, but this is a lot of movie. This is a musical about a lawyer helping a drug kingpin get a sex change operation and then also reconnect with their family. Like, what is going on in this movie? Like,
all told as this crazy musical number.
Yeah. It careens from like operatic drama to intimate family story to wild crime saga. And I don't think it juggles those tones particularly well, but I also wasn't bored. I came out of this thinking it was kind of a complete mess, even if I was fascinated by it. My non-platonic roommate, Caitlin, thought it was great. So like opinions are all over the place.
Same. Alina loved it.
Yeah. And I don't, do you know what he's doing? Like I'm so baffled by this movie. I honestly watched half of it with my mouth just like agape.
So I don't think it's crazy as people made it out to be, but I think when you're the first to see it, how can it not be, right? So maybe it's because I was prepared that I was like, okay, we're going to have a musical number about chopping off genitalia. Got it. You're going to have elements where like two people are flirting as they're searching for like lost people, but maybe those lost people are good to be lost because maybe we could be lovers now. All of these crazy takes. And I'm always giving it the benefit of the doubt because when you got some bangers under your belt, like Jacques Audiard does, A Prophet is a masterpiece. In my opinion.
Shout out Deepan. I think that movie's great.
From Cannes, yeah. Paris, 13th District is very good. I don't know, but that's also why I like it. And it's also why I don't know who to recommend this to. It's going to be coming out on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I definitely think watching it with a crowd is helpful just because you get to be in a room with everyone who's just as confused as you are. And that is kind of the point. The musical numbers, another one I did not really care for any of the musical numbers except one. I like the one with the group of people who are talking about their loved ones being missed. I thought that was actually executed very well.
Yeah, I thought also the song with the daughter singing about her father was good.
When they're in bed and she's like, "You smell just like him." Yes.
Yeah, but then also there's a song where Zoe Saldana is going all over the world trying to find out information about sex change surgeries, and it is abysmal. Like there's no rhyme scheme in that song to speak of.
No, I have no idea. I've seen people really hate that, call it problematic. I was like, not for the reasons of what she's talking about, just because of how random it is. Right?
And that is the other thing about this movie is like I think part of it is I anticipate the wave of like this movie is problematic think pieces that we're gonna get from trans audiences, from Mexican audiences, from audiences of good taste. I don't know. That said, like it is like fascinating in its own way, and I think some of the performances are really good. Like this is maybe the best I've seen of Zoe Saldana. Carla Sofia Gascon is pretty incredible in this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that she plays both sides of the character.
Yeah, they had said in particular at first that they were trying to get somebody else, but then they just decided to put a bunch of makeup, almost detransition, in order to be able to get the cartel guy first before they go through all the surgeries. They're really good in it. I've been hearing the idea, because technically title character, but I would say she's supporting.
Yeah, it's sort of weird because Zoe Saldana is our POV character
through and through,
but she also disappears from the movie for
a little bit, but enough for her to take it.
Look, if they weren't factoring in who's going to compete in what category, they're co-leads here. They should be co-leads, but we know how Oscar voting works, and co-leads it's hard to get nominated in the same category.
Hey, I think she has a better chance maybe in supporting. I don't think she'd top, aside from Oscars, the Intercut Awards, the important ones. I don't know if she'd top for my lead performances, but I also don't think she would top my supporting either. I think she's good in it, but not a runaway hit as I expected her to be. There's actually another movie, Thesis on Domestication, which ended up winning one of the other awards as well, where it's also a trans artist, like through and through. I think she's an actress in this movie, and it's her and her lover, her husband, are trying to adopt somebody, and in the adoption method, it's almost like she's being domesticated in there. And again, as a trans artist, you get to see a lot of the flashbacks to all the bullying that happened to her and what she's also trying to protect her child from. I think I want to say her name was Camila. Yeah, Camila Sosa. She is a lot better, and this would be a full lead. Emilia Perez, very good performance. But a lot of it is also very much rooted in these comedic like quips. And I think it's because of where the story goes that I don't think it allows for the depth of it. I think it gets very goofy at times too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's a musical, right? But there's like a lot of funny sequences where it's like, okay, this is almost not, it is a little otherworldly, mainly because they have grounded performances, and then you have Selena Gomez.
I was going to ask you about that, because you can speak to the Mexican-American experience of it, because I've seen people coming out saying all kinds of things about her performance, which is
what they say,
a mix of English and Spanish. I think we can say that.
Yeah, she would not know how to say some words, so she would just go to English. I was like, who is doing this, the character or you? I thought you lived in Mexico, bro. And no, I don't need to say it. She said it. She can't do an interview without apologizing for not having mastered Spanish as well as she could have. And I'll be honest with you. I think even Zoe starts off the beginning a little rough for someone who's supposed to be from, I think she said, like Mexico City.
Yeah, high-powered lawyer in Mexican City, yeah.
But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Like you had mentioned, she's really trying to push the Zoe now with the accent mark, and the Saldana with the Ñ.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Ñ in the Avatar movies. Maybe it's there. I just missed it.
I think they're like the only ones who are not pushing it, but we heard that she wants to put that now on screen. I think this is a role where her Spanish was good, but this role, by the end of the performance, she gets better. She is fluent completely, because no one's beating our main actress, the one who plays Emilia Perez.
Karsten, yeah.
Especially when she has the scenes with Selena Gomez.
Right.
Knowing that they were a couple, I was like, how are you guys a couple? You guys can't even, like, you can't even communicate. You know what I'm talking about? How? Yeah. She can't even finish the conversation here. But for Zoe, if she like used this as like her big catapult, because she hasn't been in too many Spanish movies, if I'm mistaken, like maybe Colombiana, she had some Spanish in there, but here she goes all out. And I thought she did a really solid performance. I really liked her in this movie, and I think she gets progressively better. No one's on Selena. Carla was really good. The one who's underused here for sure, Edgar Ramirez, bro. Yeah. I don't know in what universe it would have been him over my boy Pedro Pascal, but Edgar doesn't get enough love, bro. He is good. He is always solid, even in the tiny roles. He does a fantastic job.
Such a tiny role, I was surprised it was him.
Same. That's what I mean. Underrated. But I'm glad that he took it. Overall, I think that the technical aspects of it are beautiful. Even if you may not love all of the musical sequences, the lighting, the choreography, dude, they are not playing around in here. This has to be one of the best shot musicals just off of its choreography and the way that they set up a lot of these pieces, the way that they'll dim the lights.
Yeah, Todd Phillips, eat your heart out.
Impeccable work. Yeah, it's some really good stuff. Even if I'm not going to be whistling these tunes after the fact, which is usually what you want for a musical.
Right.
And the tones, while it could be jarring, I'm also fascinated by the approach to even want to do something like this. And it's intriguing to me. I don't love it, but I find it just, I'm in utter awe that you have so many tones going with each other. There is a point where two people flirt by brandishing their weapons. You know what I'm talking about.
That part's cute, kind of.
It's cute. Like, why is that cute?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I think there's some people who are going to come away from this movie calling it campy, and I don't really think this is camp.
Yeah, that's always a discussion.
But it is goofy.
They're cousins. Yeah, for sure. It's in it's in that vicinity. So yeah, know that before you go into this thinking this is big sprawling tale. I think more so, for trans people, this might be something that's more of an issue for them because I know stories tend to be split.
Yeah.
But this is a trans artist in there. I'm going to respect her telling the story. For the Mexicans out there, this is going to Netflix. Netflix already had Narcos. This ain't going to be the nail in the coffin. We don't care. These are the bad guys. We get this. They're the ones who are out there doing this crazy stuff. But I think where it really shines through is this idea of like you being able to have a second coming. When you are such a despicable figure that a lot of what's happening in the movie is all of the trauma and pain and turmoil that you caused. And once you transition, you may become the person who's fixing that. I don't know. There's a lot in that part that I think is very fascinating. And I'm curious to see how people are going to extrapolate that, the think pieces on that, and how much deeper that can get. But it's not a boring movie.
No.
And I definitely give it the thumbs up to watch once it comes out in the comfort of your own home. I'm a little timid in saying go out to the theater to see it, but the mixing on it, the visuals in it.
Right. Like it is a musical. I don't know if they're going full Dolby with it, but if you can, that'd probably be cool.
If they go full Dolby, that'd be great.
Yeah. I kind of think I'm ultimately going to go like 2.5 on this, but I don't know. I need to watch it again. I'm really just because there's some parts of this that I found fascinating and others that I just was completely taken aback by. This movie starring a bunch of American actors set largely in Mexico is actually France's submission to the Oscars this year.
Beautiful. Why not?
Yeah. So Netflix has it, but it's expected to be nominated there. A lot of people expect this to be nominated for Best Picture as well.
Sheesh. Sure.
You're not going that far?
Not even the idea of it being nominated, but this is how people find out about the movie. This is what they put there. Like, that's funny.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe scripts. Why not? Screw it. Emilia Perez. It is coming out November 1st in some select theaters. So you got 2 weeks to watch it before November 13th when it is out on Netflix. Another one that was getting some buzz before that trailer came out and people said, yeah, no, siree. I don't see it being there. Nightbitch. I did drop the money to go see this because I was able to get a Q&A with the one and only Marielle Heller, who came with a dope buzz, bro. I want to see if I can find it, but she looked so badass, bro. She cut her hair and made it blonde. I'll see if I can find it later. But Nightbitch, it is the newest one from her in her IDGAF era, as she called it. She does not care. She is putting her husband's dirty laundry up on display. It's based off of a book, but she's like, no, I went personal with this. It's my own stuff and becoming a mom. I think people wanted a different movie from the person who made Can You Ever Forgive Me? Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And even Diary of a Teenage Girl. Right. I love all those movies, and I really enjoy this one. But I think people, especially with Amy Adams and the big push for her in her Oscar, they wanted it to be a little bit different of a genre, more serious.
Yeah.
So I think people were perplexed with the trailer. But I think it's the best version of the trailer. It is very much in the camp of the trailer, but it is the best version of that. A mesh of a bunch of genres, because as she put in the Q&A, life is multiple genres. It is not just one. And I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was
Absolutely. Good. You know, Amy Adams, in a lot of people's estimation, I might even include myself in this, is the best working actor out there without an Oscar win. Right? She's got, 5 nominations at this point? Maybe 6? I think it's 5.
There's a lot out there, but she's definitely my girl who I'd bring up in the first discussion.
So people are really eager to see her win an Oscar, and to the point where I think now anytime she takes on a role in something that's not going to win her an Oscar, people get reflexively upset. Like, what are you doing? We need you to get that statue. And like at the end of the day, she's an actor, and I think, you know, this is a movie that she is able to put her all into. She, I think, gets to cut loose and show how good she is as a comedian, as somebody who can
honestly,
play all the aspects of this character, from the like kind of deranged elements that it involved with her thinking she's transitioning into a dog, up until like
goofy, by the way.
Yeah. Also the like really heartfelt stuff between her and her husband. Like, I thought some of the conversations between her and Scoot McNairy's character are some of the realest dialogues about modern marriage that I've seen in a film like this. Yeah. And like the differing expectations and roles between husbands and wives. You know, Amy Adams is a mom herself. I'm sure she was able to relate a lot to this, and she's great in it. Doesn't mean that she should or will win an Oscar for it, but I thought it was a really fun movie. It's a little, you know, it's not like anything you haven't heard before about being a mom, but like I think it's pretty well executed.
And like you said, it doesn't have to be for an Oscar. There are other reasons to take roles when you are an artist. No, just put it there. And I like the comedy side of it. I thought it worked pretty well. This is a movie that maybe shouldn't be coming out in December, but as a Mother's Day release. And all of a sudden we'll get that extra, you know, interest and intrigue in it because it's coming out when it's supposed to. And I think the movie is also commenting on those labels of what happens when you're not the person that you were supposed to be, when you put your artist side behind you and all these different things. But the comedy worked for me. It does that bit where someone asks you a question, and it does the whole, this is what I would really want to say to you, and I'm going to display it the whole thing. And then it cuts back. It does that joke a lot.
Yeah.
But it worked for the style that they were going for.
Yeah. Every time they did it, it was funny, I think. It just, they didn't
you know that they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Marielle Heller, a lot of good editing. Speaking of Marielle Heller, do you know who she's married to? Because this is one of my favorite Hollywood couples.
I feel like I do, but give me a clue. Give me a clue.
A former SNL writer and digital video star.
Andy Samberg?
Yorma Taccone.
Adjacent.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's hot, bro. That's
a great couple.
That's a great couple. Hell yeah. Wow.
Good for them.
My favorite. He's my favorite in the three. I mean, if I'm being honest. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Nightbitch. I think people will enjoy this one, even if they rolled their eyes at the trailer.
Yeah. Again, don't go into it expecting the thing that's going to mop the awards for her, but I still think it was pretty cool. I got similar images, but not the exact ones. This was her haircut.
Right.
She looked cool.
Yeah, she showed up looking kind of like that at TIFF as well.
There we go. This one, bro. Super terrible quality, but she was flexing there with the Nightbitch at the top. Nah, she looked dope. She looked super dope. I got to say hi. I got to shake Brady Corbin's hand as well, but for the most part, the music box is a really great place. So you can be just right there with some of the most talented people. So I got to breathe the same air. I got to exhume out the Saltburn, and I got to breathe in the better feminine energy from the one and only Marielle Heller. One of my favorites out there. Another big reason why I definitely have this one. Probably higher than most people will have. But again, I can put the award stuff to the side and see, hey, artists make movies to tell the stories they want to tell.
Exactly.
And I can see what she was venting here. Nightbitch, out in theaters, I want to say December 6th. So
nice. Yeah, not too long of a wait.
Nah. All right. We are in my top 15. So we'll do these 5 really quick since we have a top 10. And I'm pretty sure for the most part, you've seen a majority of these. Cool. Maybe not this one, but it had that very intriguing premise where I told you that they work for a rent-a-friend agency.
Yeah.
And one of them goes to work only to create an issue because of what they were hired to do, and ends up thinking that maybe as he's having problems with his partner, that there are people trying to rent a friend on him. And it is so fascinating. The imagery in here with the stuff that they end up being set up to do, the idea that it's more than just a rent-a-friend agency, but you can rent a pet. So many funny stuff, especially when it starts playing with this idea of like, when are you actually being authentic? Or are you setting up scenarios just to be able to fabricate whatever you want to give to somebody? You pay people to be in the way so that you could be the protector for them and such. But a very interesting story, and I found it to be pretty hilarious. Put this one on your radar if you're interested. This definitely feels like a movie that would get picked up. Peacock.
Nice. Fowl? Was that what the original title is?
Yeah, Fowl. Fowl, maybe.
Fowl. That makes sense.
Yeah, because it's a German movie, so I guess that's how you say peacock.
Yeah, I just Google translated it.
It translates to peacock?
Yeah.
Not Paramount?
Not Paramount Plus.
All right. Imagine the plus was it. That's what Fowl is, plus.
Fowl Plus.
One that I really liked and continues to honestly sneak up, bro. It's like a little ground rule double that this movie keeps doing to advance on the bases, is this film called Eephus. A baseball story that's pretty much the Sandlot kids grown up as two teams are playing on this field that's about to be eradicated. They're going to put up a school there. So it's not just the last game of the season as it starts getting cold. It's like the last game that's ever going to happen here. They're all so stubborn. They're all ranging in age. They all want to be there but don't want to be there. This is such a baseball movie that it really struck a chord for me as someone who grew up on a daily basis going to go play baseball. Big baseball fan growing up. Usually in the fall, we would go do all these film festivals. So I kind of stopped watching a lot of baseball for a bit. Now that the World Series is back, I've been catching a lot of the games and just getting back into the sport itself. It is my favorite sport without a doubt. And it is America's pastime for a reason, because it's boring. I know not to love something and admit when it's boring, when it's long, when it has all these different elements to it. But as they explain, it's also kind of like life. You're waiting for something to happen, and then the next thing you know, it's over. It's so good. The cinematography, as you were explaining when you had covered it from New York, where it's got this like very, very much, you can see things, but not so much because the sun is going down and none of them have got the lights to be able to this place. The banter between the teams, the breaks that they take, the explanation of the actual sport, which I found fascinating because it's not boring for the people who know it, but it's also good for the people who don't. You have the outsiders who are coming in to just watch them, just all of the elements to it and how baseball really reflects on life. I found to be beautiful. Yeah. It is very, I don't know what you would call it, because I would compare it to that other one where they were going to film the documentary at different museums where the character, I don't want to say monotone, you know what I mean? But it's very much in a very, like a line.
It's slow cinema, right? Like it's similar to like a Patterson or a Showing Up in its way, in that it's not super plot heavy. You're not like waiting for some big twist to reveal itself. It really is a hangout on the baseball diamond with these guys. Yeah. And it just lends this really incredible quality to it where you are just sort of vibing, you're in the moment, you're just kind of relaxing the way that I think a lot of people do when they watch baseball. You know, I agree with you. Baseball is a pretty boring sport at times, but like it also, there's something about it that is just inherently cinematic. Maybe it is because it comes down to these matchups between pitcher and batter would just have like these decisive moments, or a lot of it is just the sitting and waiting and the being amongst peers and shooting the shit aspect of it. It has this real like authentic feel to it where you really feel like you are here with these people in this dugout, hearing their stories. And I, like you, was just really enamored with all the little baseball details. I loved doing the interstitials where they would drop quotes from famous baseball players like Yogi Berra's "It Gets Late or So Early" and stuff like that. Like those are just really joyful things. But you know, I think it's a movie that really appreciates all the small things that happen around the sport of baseball, not just the dynamic between people on the team, but like who's the kind of guy who will sit and keep the score, who's the kind of who's the, like, what happens to the bored kids of the guy who wants to stay until late night playing with his friends this one final time,
watching the game like he used to with his
all these
wife,
people who know all these people who know that this might be their final time on a baseball diamond. Like, there's something really romantic and dramatic about that. And I think Eephus very, very slyly, without really making a big deal about it, does a lot of pretty awesome things with the story.
Like an Eephus pitch. A beautiful explanation to that, and one I would recommend. I think even if you don't know baseball, everybody knows this idea where people get together for something that they love to varying degrees and put up with each other, talk about it, and stay for all 9 innings. Eephus, a really big surprise from the festival. Check this one out if you can.
And shout out to our buddy Taylor J. Williams, who we recorded a New York Film Festival recap that's still coming on the channel. He was in the camera department on this movie.
This man say he hit the walk-off home run
at the Eephus party.
Did he really?
I have no reason to doubt him.
I need tape, bro. I want to see this grand slam.
I'll contact Taylor. We'll see if we can get a clip. Yeah.
Shout out him. Very good stuff there. Put that one on your radar, as well as these other two that one is coming out. I think this other one comes out very late. Hard Truths, I think, has a 2025 release date, if I'm not mistaken. The newest one by Mike Lee, about a woman, as I had described prior, who has a lot of baggage from her past. But that doesn't mean anything to you when you come across her in a parking lot or a grocery store and she starts yelling at you because you don't realize the guards that she is putting up. I know that some people have seen this movie and have found her very aggravating. I know this person so well because many times I am this person. She is also hilarious, bro. She will run on tangents for the longest time. She'll just talk and talk and talk. But then the emotions that she feels, because she feels she's putting so much but getting back so little, is fascinating. This idea of the patience that some of her loved ones need to give around her, but not realizing the baggage that she's carrying is also baggage she is imposing on her own family, on her own kid. I don't know. This was a really big surprise for someone who respects Mike Lee. But many times, very slow moving director. Many times he'll do a lot of, like, what is it, Turner? I think, about the painter. Here, this clash between easily having the characters who come from a culture that Mike Lee, I do not believe, interacts with as much, I thought was beautiful. The push and pull between the two of them, especially with the sisters. She has 2 nieces who you follow a little bit. There's these tangent moments where you get to see them at work. And like, I wanted more from it, but the scenes they give you are more than enough for what you need for the story. And I'm like, okay, it tells you so much about this family and the dynamics that they have to work within, and almost how they reflect they themselves not becoming like the aunt. Very good stuff, dude. I have her as a top performance. I also would put the father, when he gets hurt, as one of the most excruciating scenes in a movie that I've seen in a while. Just because if you know that back pain, it resonates. But I like that. I did find the humor in it, and when you have that at the forefront, it really comes crunching down on you when the emotional impact hits. And I thought it was very well done. Hard Truth.
Absolutely. This one was a wallop for me. This just has so much emotional authenticity to its characters. You talked about how, like, she's this bitter person who is quick to anger, and there's just such a hilarious creativity to all the little things that she's able to find issue with.
And I'll tell you what, right? And another thing,
she has a nonstop list of complaints, and it can be aggravating.
Incredible.
Like, I would not want to be stuck around this person, but it is very entertaining in its own way too in this movie. But yeah, and it just all speaks to this really smartly constructed idea of, like, what goes into a person's life to make them this way. Sometimes you'll see somebody on social media who's just, like, screaming vitriol at people, and people will say, like, that person's probably hurting more than whoever they're talking to. And I feel like that's often the case, right? Like, these angry people have these things in their own life that make them this way. And I don't know if I've ever seen a film that really speaks to that quite as intelligently as this one does, quite as eloquently as this one does. And the acting in particular is what really, really sells it. I said there's one performance that I have ahead of Mikey Madison this year, and it is Marianne Jean-Baptiste in this film. She is so incredible. The way that she's able to, like, on a dime, turn you from being sort of resentful and angry into this character to deeply empathetic and sad for her is incredible. Fascinating, beautiful stuff. This movie keeps moving up my best of the year list. I think it's really great. I expect they'll give it some kind of Oscar qualifying run because she is so good in this movie, but I don't think it has a date yet.
I got it noted right now so far for a limited December 6th.
Okay.
Where? Who knows? But it's supposed to go wide in January 10th. So it's like one of those right before Sundance where I could see it getting nominations and people go, where is this playing? And it's like not being released for another 2 weeks. But if you can catch it at a festival, please do so. Zach said, great performance because a lot of the stuff is done in long takes too, where you're like, whoa, like no help from the editing, just through and through, just on her. And yeah, I agree with you because as someone, I've been on YouTube for a while. I have probably gotten more hate comments than I've gotten just regular comments from some people sometimes who have accumulated. Yeah. I mean, even recently, I got a person who's been commenting on every video. It's just stalking me because I called them out. and you realize they're carrying a lot of pain. I had one where it was a back and forth discussion. And once I like met eye to eye with them, because that's the big part of the movie, right? Other than the sister, nobody else wants to meet eye to eye to you. It felt like actual comment section arguments in real life, especially with the parking lot. Like you just don't want someone to one up you. You don't want someone to one up you at the grocery store. So you just argue and you're bitter. And I've had moments where when you meet eye to eye with somebody, they will tell you, even in the comment sections, even without an Avi, as anonymous as they are, hey, sorry, I realize I was pretty bitter. I just have not been well at home. I've been on YouTube for a long time. Damn, I worked at a McDonald's drive-thru, and I've seen how people are when they are hungry. It is no different when you are online and people are coming at you with their own baggage as well. They put it under the stuff you have to say, but you know, we say words for a living, so of course I take the words that people say back to a varying degree, and I understand that many times it comes from a place where they just want to be heard, and there's a live action embodiment of it, and I found it fascinating. A very good movie, hard truths. Give this one a watch. And if you have someone like that near you, or if you're acting like her at times, you learn from this.
Yeah, give him a hug. I don't know,
give him a hug. Really, that's one of the biggest parts.
Yeah, really, really glad you responded to this one. I think it is a pretty special movie.
Really good stuff. I think one that I may like a little bit more than a lot of other people. Blitz. I think it's one where because of Steve McQueen, we expect so much more. But I like the big structure that he goes for this, of it being this very big World War epic where a mother has to let go of her child in order for him to be protected because of all the bombings that are happening. And then the kid goes on his own journey because he runs away, and it becomes this almost search for him while he's searching for his way back home. But I thought, you know, the big set pieces that he's able to get was at a level that we have not seen Steve McQueen do. You know, the Prime movies, the 4 that he released with Small Axe, were still a little bit smaller. I think, what would be his biggest movie? 12 Years?
Yeah, that or maybe Widows, just because of the cast is so good in that
maybe because of the cast, right? But even here, like you have set pieces dealing with bombings, dealing with under bunker camps.
This definitely feels like, if not his biggest movie, then close to it.
And for that, I liked it. I respected it. I like the journey that the kid goes on. I think he's a very good child actor, and especially with him trying to come to his own with a lot of the flashbacks of him being a young black boy living there in the UK, and then seeing how other people interact. Being at the lowest of the lowest with Stephen Graham, who I did not know was in this movie. When he pops out, I was like, damn, this guy is crazy. And even Saoirse Ronan, who I know is another person where The Outrun may not have been the movie people wanted it to be for her Oscar chances. And this one, I wouldn't say is one that she's going to be pushing for that. But I loved her character in this and what she's willing to do for her son as well. I know it's coming out to Apple around the end of November. I think it's
it's November 1st in theaters, Apple November 21st.
Exactly. I think it's good. I think it's a really good telling of this story of a situation that I didn't know was happening where they were pulling the kids apart, and I would recommend it. I think it was solid, even though I think a lot of people expect subtlety or you know, there's something that I know people expect from Steve McQueen the same way they wanted something for the Amy Adams movie, and he made it more of a broader tale, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. I do think I have some of those hangups with it that you were talking about, in that, like, if you compare this to other Steve McQueen movies, I think I prefer a lot of the other one. Like, it's not like the worst Steve McQueen movie. Right. Like,
whoa.
Yeah, and there's just elements of this that are a little more conventional than I expected from a filmmaker like that. Yeah,
but I think that's why it'll give him a big audience.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Like, there's a sequence in particular where you go from this banquet that's being thrown through it into the kitchen, and then it has this big reveal, and that's where it's like, oh, that's the Steve McQueen I remember. Yeah. But then there's other moments where it's a little more didactic, or a little bit, the plot has some conveniences in it where I was like, what? This seems like low effort for the filmmaker that I'm used to. It's still a really solid film, and shows a side of war combat that I don't think we see much, in terms of like what is happening to the people at home and the domestic, the people who are not like overseas fighting, but are feeling the ramifications of it. And particularly the way that it's able to incorporate race into that discussion as well is really, really interesting. Yeah. I guess I just wanted a little bit more of the feeling that I normally get from a Steve McQueen film.
Completely fair. Yeah. I hope it does well, especially since it should be available at home. I look forward to seeing more stuff from the kid as well, because I believe it's Elliot's introduction, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what else he's been in. Whopping one. He did good. He did a good job with it. So definitely. Blitz, keep that one on your radar as well. As we wrap up the list with my top 10 so far. Not really any particular order. I just know these are the top 10 that I resonated with the most. And I begin with a surprise. I don't know in what world this messed up, sick film called Vulcanizadora. I still haven't even searched out what he's doing with that. I just know I went in here as blank as possible. But I had an inkling of like, okay, these two guys go into the forest and they have a plan to do something. That's all I knew. Kind of put two and two together. And you get some set pieces in this movie where Alina thought it was a documentary. There's a guy who vents. And Alina's like, are they like documenting these like really depressed guys? And I was like, no, I think that guy tapped into something he wasn't supposed to tap into. It is visceral. When you get to that title, the poster sequence, as you can see right there, in where they are dealing with this contraption, it is some of the most tense minutes of cinema that I have sat through.
Hell yeah.
Wild, wild stuff. And then you have a whole third act where I was sick to my stomach. When we're talking about red rooms and all these like real horror stuff, I can see you guys did blood, guts, or whatever else. Mentally, it's effed, bro. Like mentally, where these actors have to go through is insane. And correct me if I'm wrong, is one of them the director?
I believe so. Yeah, I think Joel Petrakis is one of the main actors in this film. I haven't caught up to Vulcanizadora yet, but I'm very eager to, because I've seen a couple of his previous films, and that dude does mentally unhinged protagonists in a way I don't think I've ever seen. Like you talk, I think that's a really great comparison you bring up to horror movies, because sometimes it just feels like watching a horror movie, the way they move through the world.
Yeah. Yes, because like I know those sequences aren't happening when it's physical, but when you get to a mental state, it's like, nah, bro, why are you keeping that in my head, bro? Like the anxiety that it leaves you with is insane. Please watch this. This is sickening. It is a ridiculous movie, and it surprised me through and through. It was in the midnight category here and at TIFF, and rightfully so. A standout. You had put Buzzard on my radar, because I always look at this and it reminds me of Freddy Krueger. So I know that this has been on my watch list for a minute. I am definitely now bumping it up even higher, because he's messed up, but he's talented, bro. And someone needs to check on him. Someone needs to check on him, make sure he's okay. And very good stuff. One of the standout independent films, and just in films in general.
Yeah.
Vulcanizadora.
They definitely have like a very independent spirit to his movies. So I'd highly recommend Buzzard, and I can't wait for Vulcanizadora.
The next one that I have is a movie that played at TIFF and also was able to win some awards over here. When the Light Breaks, a film about a girl who's dating her bandmate, but the bandmate's got another girlfriend. So when an incident happens where the two have to mourn, They have this push and pull of like, what do you know? Where are you taking care of him? What is the secrets that they had behind each other? This might be one of the best shot movies. There are so many good ones that I saw this and I was like, there's no way this is a number one. Then I'm seeing all these other great ones. But damn, would I highlight this as a movie you definitely want to see, because there are sequences, especially because there's a trailer out, where the way they capture the actors amongst the architecture in particular. There's this one where she is like mourning, looking out a window. Oh, this one right here. Dude, visceral cinema. The performances also really great with what they have to withhold. I think she is a standout. She is in one of my top performances so far. I think she won an award for Chicago as well. I think she got the female award, whereas The Quiet Son got the male award. Rightfully so. Definitely check out this movie. It's one about mourning. It's one about art as well, since that's why they bonded with each other. And again, one of the best shot films of the year so far, in my opinion. When the Light Breaks.
Awesome. Very curious about that one.
Yeah. This next one over here, I think you said you caught too, right? I gotta show
do you have it up on the screen?
Maybe if I show it to you, right? Maybe that'll do it. Okay.
Yeah, that would help.
I'm still here.
or tell me the title. I did, but honestly, I gotta be real with you. I was so sleepy that I have so little to say about this film. But I really want to catch up with it because I keep
the premise?
Good things. Yeah.
Okay, say the premise. I gotta let Lady out.
So it's this film that takes place in Brazil under a military dictatorship when this guy is sort of brought in for an interrogation, like sort of the ramifications that happened through his family from that, and some I know a lot of people have been talking about the performance in particular. What's her name? I need to pull up the page.
Fernanda.
Yeah. I accidentally pulled the page up for the Casey Affleck documentary with Joaquin Phoenix which has the same title.
That's the other thing too. Yeah, sadly, they're stuck with a title that's already been used by that Joaquin hybrid thingy. But no, I thought this one was very solid. It is a submission for Brazil that is looking back at the dictatorship that they were going through. But you are presented this movie as if it's just like a family affair, a family who's looking to buy a new place up at the peak where they even get a view of the what's it called, the statue that they have in Brazil. They're going to have all this land. All the kids are very well lived in terms of all the goals that they have. One of the daughters just wants to have fun. The other daughter wants to travel. One of them is very close to the father, who, as you mentioned, was a political figure before retiring. But it's because of those connections that he had, specifically to communism, that the dictatorship really starts to come in with a heavy hand. They are going through anybody or anything that has ever had any connections. And it's about all of the illegal and unjust arrests that happen, but specifically the kidnappings. That is where the mother comes in and really becomes the forefront figure in trying to find justice for him. And because it's based off of a true story, it really hits you like a gut punch towards the end. And it reminded me a lot of, there's another movie that came out of TIFF 2 years ago that we covered called Chile 76. If you search up Chile, it's one of the titles. The second part is the year, but it's also very similar in terms of like trying to look back at a dictatorship. And do you let it be, or do you actually get the government to admit what they did? I think of La Llorona, the good version, where it's shot in black and white, and it's about the guy, the dictator. I think he was from Guatemala. So just all these states, all these places, different places, same damn crimes, right?
Yeah.
And it's him being haunted in a very fable way because of the stuff that they did. Yeah. And it's very much a movie
of their policy.
It's very much a movie that's telling you this isn't something you should forget. I don't even think you should forgive, but when people aren't dealing with the repercussions, you can't really move the country forward if you're not willing to rectify the past. And I think this stands out fully like that. Again, it's jarring the way that you're hanging out with the family and it feels very lived in, and then all the turmoil comes in. But I thought it was a standout and makes my top 10 of the fest so far, and one that I'm rooting for to get one of the 5 slots for international. I'm still here.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm really eager to, because I keep hearing good things. I just those Caitlin 10 a.m. screenings are hard to appreciate. No, yeah, Caitlin saw it too, and also really liked it.
Good. It's a solid one, and I would have her as well. Fernanda in the top performance of the year so far. Next up, and it's only here because the architecture is still building up. The more that you sit with this and the foundation really gets set, it continues to go up. Waited 2 hours. It wasn't the full Brutalist like I had tweeted out. There was a man there who was there at 1 o'clock. Shout out the boy. That dude appeared as early as he can be for this 5 o'clock showing of the Brutalist.
Because just to put a little context in front of that, the Brutalist has been the hot ticket at film festivals. The press screening at the Toronto International Film Festival, there were over 100 people with passes who did not get in to see the Brutalist. And then again, when I went to go see it in New York, there were another 100 or so press people who got shut out from that line too. So a lot of people desperate to go see the new Brady Corbett. And we got Corbett fever right now in Filmland.
And that's what's fire about it, bro. The moment these tickets dropped, it was the only ticket I bought. Because I told you, should I go to Nightbitch? And you said, you do movies for a living, grow up, go watch it. Man, I bought those tickets like the day prior. But these sold out the minute they dropped. Every person who went to the box office was laughed out of there. Some guy was coping so hard. He said, I guess the Brutalist was the friends we made along the... Get out of here, bro. No. You did not get the chance to see this movie. But I hope you can. And I hope you can catch it in 70 millimeter. Because this was the best projection at the music box I've seen so far. The 35 millimeter to this was beautiful. I feel some theater employees don't like when I say, hey, some of the other ones I've seen were a little overblown, but I got to keep it honest with you because when I give you the praise, I am giving you the damn praise. This was projected impeccably. This might be my favorite score of the year. This, I think, is Adrian Brody's best performance. And I'm still figuring out what the hell was happening on screen, dude. This is split into 2 parts, and it was absolutely nothing of what I was expecting. I heard it's about a Jewish man who comes over to the United States and then ends up becoming a very famous architect or was already an architect. But I did not expect Guy Pearce to be one of my best supporting actors of the damn year, coming in as this tycoon who hires him with some other elements in there, to build this massive monument for his mother, I think it was, or his sister, someone related to him. I'm blanking on who it was.
Yeah.
Right? But the flip on this story, right? The poster shows you New York, the Statue of Liberty, upside down, because it's flipping this idea, dude, of like, you've all heard the New York story. Did y'all been to Philly? Philly was where they were dogging it, dude. And I just found that take already fascinating. Seeing the titles come out side to side instead of how we usually see them. The end credits also being in a different way.
Yeah.
Brady said at the Q&A that they asked him if architecture was a form, or if film was a form of architecture. And he said, thank you for saying that. That is exactly how I see it. And I see him restructuring how we see film in general. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's a great point. It really is like him sort of making a case for the value of these like artistic pieces, talking about it through architecture, but ultimately talking about it as, you know, the importance of film, right? And making films like this that are big, grand swings and bold statements. And just the aesthetics of this movie are to die for. The texture of the film format, the way that these sets all kind of evoke the period. There's a grandness to how it's filmed, to how it's scored. I really want to talk about that score. Daniel Blumberg, I think, is the guy who did it. It is easily, to me, the film score of the year. It has this real grand, sweeping nature to it that I think helps lend the film that gravity that each moment has, that these are not just like the happenings in one man's life, but a microcosm of the American dream, or the American dream inverted. You shouted out that image from the poster of the Statue of Liberty flipped. And when the film hits you with that really early on, I got goosebumps, man. Like, it is such a incredible build. The way that the music and the arguments and the just chaos of that moment bring you in. And I've never seen the Statue of Liberty portrayed like that before. But it's so smart in this story that is ultimately about the things that America does, particularly to those who come here seeking some form of the American dream and the immigrant experience. How it's not. There's the rise and the fall. There's the promise of all the things that you can do, and then there's the reality of all the things that it takes from you. I think it has a lot to say about this country, about the immigrant experience, not just then, but now. Also has a lot to say about the relationship between an artist and the people who pay to get that art made. Because that is ultimately the situation that a lot of filmmakers find themselves in, is not just trying to get their art made, but trying to find someone who's willing to see it get made and pay for it. And I think the film is really fascinating. I'm curious how you felt about that split between the first half and second half, because our sort of reactions from Amanda and Chase after TIFF was that they loved the first half and they appreciated the second half, but don't think it was quite on the same level.
What was different about it?
I mean, I think to me, it's really, as sort of I was talking about, like the rise and the fall, the promise, and then the reaping of the negative rewards, But
he was falling a lot in the first one.
True, but there's just this like electric optimism, I think, in the first one that is not as present in the second half. And I'm not saying that to say I agree. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit here. I think a lot of things, a lot of ideas that were planted in the first half are ultimately harvested in that second half.
I agree with that.
Though it does, like, it does make some ideas a little more literal than I was expecting. If that makes any sense without spoiling anything.
Yeah, for me, I think a big thing about the shift between the two was I had heard a lot of people say how different it was, and I literally thought we were going to be in Europe for the first half, and then it came to America. That's how like drastic I thought it was going to be. I still see it as kind of like the setup, and then him getting the big job with Guy Pearce's character. So to me, it was kind of like all in the same. But I very much agree with that idea that it's him kind of showing you filmmaking. It is this idea of an artist and who they have to deal with who funds it. All the ideas they have to push back on. There's this one where he explains what's ugly and who's to blame. Banger of a line. Yeah. But it all leads up to this one massive thing, which is the closing line. I won't say what it is, but I mean, it almost makes the entire movie, whether you find it maybe a little too long or boring, because it could definitely be those things. I don't think it's as accessible as people may be making it out to be. I think movies that they have mentioned prior, like people have been saying No Country, people have been saying There Will Be Blood. I think those are even more accessible than the brooding nature that this one has, especially with the way that they're capturing characters. I think that it's him wearing his heart on his sleeve in terms of what it's like to get movies made and what you have to deal with certain producers and the compromises you have to make. It is a struggling artist, what's the word? Because of his, I don't want to say condition, but troubled, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah.
A troubled artist in there. I'm liking it more and more the more that I think back of certain sequences and what he's trying to say with them, in the way that he's trying to conceptualize them, visualize this whole idea of the way that the main character approaches architecture in the same way that he's trying to approach film. Yeah. I just went up to him at the end, shook his hand, and I said, bro, keep doing what you're doing. But he fully in the Q&A went, I don't expect all you guys to like this. You shouldn't like this, because that's the idea of what the film is. It is trying to, like the title says, be very much about this one way of showing you things, as he was getting very, he was really into brutalist architecture at that point, and the way that you bring all the materials to come together. I would recommend it if you're a film fan. If you are not a film fan, maybe wait to watch it at home, because you do get an intermission. But you still got to sit there for a long time.
That said, though, like, I think it flies.
Fast.
Yeah,
the first half, I waited longer in the bathroom. It felt.
I've been saying it's a 3.5 hour movie that feels like a 2.5 hour movie. Like, it doesn't feel short.
Which is so
it feels
funny,
a lot shorter
right.
than it is.
You are right. It is a 3.5 hour, 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah.
In between, I ran to go use the bathroom. That's when I ran into Karsten. Karsten was, he had the smart idea to also go to the secondary bathrooms at the Music Box Theater. So I got to see him there. And I also got to see some Intercuties over there. Shout out Blaine. We were, he was second in line to us when we were waiting to get in there. And he was telling me what the best seats were to be there. He came from St. Louis. So he's a Sliff aficionado.
Shout out Sliff.
But he said he had to come over here for a Sliff. And then some boys from Michigan as well. It was definitely an experience where all the film fans were there dedicated already to watch a 3.5 hour movie, whatever came their way. During the intermission, people were like, I don't know what's happening. Also very difficult to hear some of the dialogue as well, because they aren't just going through different languages. Brody mumbles. He's got a lot of stuff that he's doing where, because of the state of what he's in, maybe some subtitles will be needed for people who watch this at home, but it is all part of the experience.
I didn't need subtitles because he sounded like half my family. I thought this was an incredible Adrian Brody performance. Yeah, like this dude to me that's the best actor of the year, hands down. And Pierce is great too. I hope he gets nominated. Brody's unreal.
See, so I want Adrian Brody. I mentioned Guy Pearce. I want Guy Pearce nominated. I thought he was impeccable in this. And Joe Alwyn, I don't know what happened after the divorce, but this man has taken really crazy roles. His role in Kind of Kindness is fantastic, and it's despicable. And in The Brutalist, he's fantastic, and he's despicable. Like, he is just really good in the second half of his career right now, bro. Like, I'm curious to see what else he's going to be doing. Really fantastic stuff. I am glad that Billy Lynn is now all the way at the bottom, because even these side performances are better than the lead stuff that he's had early on. But
low-key built an interesting career for himself.
Yeah. Now, this is cinema, as they say. Catch it on film if you can. Be wary. It is a very hefty, long movie. You are going through it with the character, but it's one to definitely catch in theaters. If I mean 100%. You are already intrigued in a 250-minute movie about brutalism architecture. Shout out Brady Colbert. Keep doing your stuff. The Brutalist in theaters, if I'm not mistaken, by Mubi, or is it A24?
I think it's A24. It picked it up.
Right? Should have been. And I believe this is getting a December release date.
Yeah.
Yeah, December 20th. Wow, very limited. Give it a watch. All right.
Can't agree more.
Seed of the Sacred Fig. Mohamed Rasoulof has made some bangers that I've seen at Chicago as well. This feels like a sister movie to There Is No Evil. What happens when you have a father figure who is fully responsible for all the turmoil and crap that is happening in your country, and the daughters are like, Mom, I don't know how you're agreeing with this, but enough is enough. You had mentioned 4 daughters earlier. And I think that's a very good contrast, or like a good double feature to have with this. And what happens when you have a mother who pushes a lot of the ideals, believes that the law isn't just ordained, but is God-given. And when you have kids realizing, this is not the way that we should be, forget the country, this is not how we should be living in our own house. I think it's starkly 2 halves of a movie for sure as well, because this is another one pushing 2.5 hours. And the first half is just like the girls coming to the realization and their friends and all the protests that are happening. And it's done in a very intriguing way, because it cuts to documentary footage, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's real footage that people
of the protests in Iran. Yeah.
And all the stuff that was happening. And it's very clever. Like, there'll be a point where they get stuck in traffic and they go right, and they start showing you, like, so this is the real life thing that they would have been stuck in. Really good performances all around. The second half is definitely more tense, because that's when it really hones in on the family drama side.
Exactly. The first half is more like a picture of the state, what it's like living in a country during this time. Like, what's it like when there are protest movements around the corner for you and you are just trying to live your life. And then the second half, it becomes a little more personal. The conflict outside their home comes into their home. And that's where, for me, I was pitching this to you as like the movie that's made me feel the most like the arguments that I've had with like family members about Black Lives Matter, where I'm getting a different side of the perspective from getting my news one way, whereas they're getting a different perspective from getting their news another way. And that generational divide between how people receive information is so at the heart of the conflict in this movie. I thought it was really smartly told. I think it's incredibly smart and then becomes incredibly suspenseful. It's an incredible movie, only made more incredible by the fact that Mohamed Raslouf made this film in secret and is now in exile promoting it.
This man's insane. Yeah, I've never seen a filmmaker like that, which is crazy. Some people have all the stuff in the world and they can't make a fraction of what he's able to do with this. I see your comparison there as well. I think it's... What's up?
We got a special guest.
What's up, boy?
I'm so sorry for intruding. I got the DM and now I'm here, but please don't let me interrupt. You were in the middle of a sentence.
I was just explaining protests in America, and it's okay. I think they got the message.
What's up, man? Karsten Rundquist joining the podcast.
You guys were on YouTube, and I had to tune in, and Art said, ran into you at the bathroom line, had to talk about the Brutalist, and I
was like, bro, nice to talk to you. Are the bathrooms open, bro? I gotta go so bad.
Dude, I just have to say, that was chaos. It's like I knew I had seen so many like screen or pictures of the intermission sign on Twitter before seeing the movie. So when the photo popped up, I was like, that's it, I'm out. Like I know what's about to happen. And when I came back from the bathroom, it was like I'd never seen a line that long. It was all the way up to the screen. It was madness. Anyway.
Yeah. We just finished talking about The Brutalist, but you got to see it. Was it as massive of a cinema experience for you as people are making it out to be?
It was, yes. I mean, it's like one of the biggest movies just in scale and in like, I mean, ambition. Yeah. It like kind of, you guys were saying it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, especially that second half. I forget if you guys talked a little bit about this, but there were parts that felt honestly more on the nose than I was expecting it to be. Like I kind of expected a very heady kind of art house epic. But it really was like kind of holding your hand a bit, which I don't mean to sound like a bad thing. I thought it made for just like, I even though it's a little on the nose, I thought it kind of worked. I'm like, something this big, I think the ending is, I don't want to say vague, but like, I don't know, enough up to interpretation that like some of the more on the nose stuff earlier kind of worked in my opinion. But sorry, these are such jumbled. I didn't think I'd be talking right now. So just kind of like,
I'm just really quick would be
cleaning my damn apartment, and now I'm on here. But yeah,
no, man, we're just glad to hear from you and know that you enjoyed this piece too.
It wasn't my favorite thing I saw at the festival. There was a better one, but I'll wait until I guess we'll get into that. But I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, Art, if you think we're ready, I'm happy to jump to whatever movie was Karsten's favorite, and then we'll get into the rest of your top 5.
Okay, so Karsten's favorite was clearly. See, what's the funniest one I could bring up, bro? I don't got a funny one.
Conor O'Malley's Rap World.
Hell yeah, let's talk about it.
I wish it was
some of the best nights in my life were in parking lots.
Unfortunately, it was not a Chicago International movie, but I did watch it right before seeing The Brutalist, which was crazy.
What a double feature.
That was crazy. Yeah.
That's a better feature than Brutalist Venom 3, so
right.
I'll take it, bro. I'll take it.
Right.
What else did you have? Before your number one, what else floated in your area?
What do you enjoy? We don't have to get deep about it. Just curious what
you responded the best to. Popcorn.
Loved Universal Language.
Hell yeah.
Can't wait to catch that.
Beautiful and funny. I did really like Seed of the Sacred Fig.
Cool.
Like, didn't think it was. I didn't know it was going to be that long. And then I didn't feel the length as much as I expected to. Like, when it started, I was like, oh, so this is what it's going to be. And I was a little nervous. I was like, this is going to be a long movie, but it was riveting. Really loved it.
It really picks up in that second half when the tension becomes more intimate. Art, I don't know if you had any last thoughts on it too, because we did cut you off a little on Seed of Sacred Fig.
Oh no, we were there. I agree with it. I think the second half is also really strong, but I think they complement each other well. The setup to then it becoming a personal tale there.
Yeah. No Other Land, I got a shout out.
Hell yeah. When'd you watch it?
When did I watch it? I saw it on the 25th, day after The Brutalist.
Friday?
Gene Siskel. Friday.
Gene Siskel Center at 1 p.m.? Where were you sitting? I was in the back.
That's hilarious. I was kind of near the front. I never usually sit near the front, but I was up there for some reason. That movie is like, it's kind of hard to even say anything about it. It was so devastating. But yeah, like I was talking to a friend. It's like, you can read all about this and watch all the coverage you want, but like seeing it firsthand in this form is really devastating and horrific. I can't recommend it enough, even though it's not a obviously enjoyable watch. It's I think incredibly necessary, and I would recommend it to anybody.
But there's a lot of people talking about that film in the context of like whether or not it will get nominated for an Oscar, which feels so like flippant when it is this really vital piece of documentary filmmaking.
It's a journalistic movie, to be honest with you, because the subject is a kid who's been recorded since he was just like a toddler there. So it helped, like, the idea that now he's the one with the camera trying to film the stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I'll just shout out Eephus on a more lighthearted note. I really was very charmed by Eephus, and just nothing else to say there.
Eephus feels like the more along the tones of the movies you make. Like, so I'm not surprised to see that you responded to it.
I mean, so I was a huge fan. I saw Christmas Eve in Miller's Point at Cannes, which is also out of the same collective of filmmakers, I think shot by Karsten Lund, who directed Eephus.
Yeah.
And I was really like in love with it. I fell in love with that movie. It's just it's like a hangout movie, but at Christmas, it's just mostly like a vibe. You're following like 20 characters. And then Eephus is kind of the same thing. It's a baseball hangout movie where there's not really a main character. It's just you're watching these guys play baseball, and the humor. I mean, you're right. It is my sense of humor. It's just like this very silly kind of deadpan style. So I ate it up. Yeah, it was incredible.
Big fan of Eephus over here too.
Yeah, were you with that screening as well?
No, they sent me a link. Imagine if I was. Yeah, I was playing shortstop, bro. I was on the left side of the theater.
Just lurking somewhere in the corner. Yeah,
I think I know what may be your top one. So I'll go through a couple of other ones that I've seen quickly. Okay. I know you did not see The Art of Joy because this thing was 4 hours long. They decided to show a mini series. It's 318 minutes.
Damn.
I think it's based off of a book. They decided to screen it with an intermission. So there was 2 movies with intermissions. This is pretty much a girl who was raised in a nunnery, ends up trying to salt burn this like queen. That's the best way I could describe it. She is doing everything in her power to be able to get in there and get their house. I got a link for it, so I was able to see it in 2 parts. But Art of Joy, give this one a watch if you're interested. They were actually giving out like bandanas or something, which when you watch the movie, you're like, how was that even a thing? But yeah, the best way I could describe it is like a female salt burn.
A little anachronistic.
September 5th.
I was curious about this one because there's some people who think it's great and others who not as high on it.
Okay. So I saw people who I know the lineups for Venice going, where did this movie come from? Boy, you know where this movie came from. This movie was like a top pick from over there. September 5th is covering the Munich attacks that happened with the Olympians that were there. But it specifically it's all done from the media room. So it's about how ABC really wanted to get there and be the like front runner for it. I think it's invigorating in the sense of everything that was created because of that event. I know there's obviously the political side of it. I think everyone worried about the political side of it should wait till the movie comes out, because it's very much about what happens when you clickbait. What happens when you create one of the biggest stories and are willing to put news out there or cover news in a certain way, create superimposed images. Like the stuff that this covers in 90 minutes is fantastic, bro. I think this is going to be a hit. If this ends up being one of the nominees, I can see a lot of people who are more detached from obviously the politics of what it's covering being very into this just because of how brisk it is. The cast is really good in this, from Peter Sarsgaard, John Magaro, and then I want to say this is her from the Teacher's Lounge. She was very good in this. But it very much is about how news decides to cover a subject and everything that gets created because of it. So September 5th, definitely add that one on your radar. I know a lot of people have been mixed to it leading up to it, but it is good. I see the comparison from Munich. I think it's incomparable because one is Steven freaking Spielberg, but this other one is very much a news agency like thriller. What are you going to do in order to be able to get the broadcast out there? I know Zach saw this one with me, Memoir of a Snail, which to me is a standout animated film of the year. Probably my favorite. I did not get to catch Flow yet, but so far I love this one. Zach, you saw it too, right?
Yeah, it's like a beautifully animated story. Is this Adam Elliott, I believe, is the filmmaker's name, the same guy who did? Yeah,
because I'm watching this and I'm like, this reminds me of that Max and Mary movie.
For good reason.
Yeah, Mary and Max, yeah, because he's the director.
Yeah, and just the way that it's sort of able to incorporate this almost like whimsical tone with these elements of like really dark and depressing, these dark and depressing elements, I thought was pretty fantastic. Yeah, just a beautifully told story. I love the style of claymation. You saw it too, Karsten?
I was gonna see it, but I ended up not being able to. But I had some friends who
on
saw
the radar.
It. Yeah, it's on the radar now. Yeah.
I may have a link. I'll see if a pigeon can get it to you. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Conclave, we talked about prior to the fest, was one of the early screenings that I got. Fascinating stuff. I love it. I think it is a crazy movie. We'll be talking more spoilers after this as well, but this one's out in theaters now, so I guess anyone can watch this selection. And then A Real Pain, which was another movie from Sundance that they were able to pick up that is about to roll out into some theaters, and I think is still one of my top 3 favorite movies of the year. But we'll wrap it up with what I know was the biggest one. Nickel Boys.
You knew.
How can you not? It is such an achievement.
Yeah. I was, holding back when I saw it. I really wanted to make my review something like it's unlikely something is going to top this year, because I knew I was going to see Brutalist the next day. And then I was going to see Nora the next day. And I was like, well, I'll wait. But no, this is the one. This is a really incredible movie.
Yeah. When I was in line for the Brutalist and I'd met up with Blaine, he was like, yo, this is the one. It restructures cinema. He was talking about it like it was a brand new form completely. And we had seen the trailer like right before going in, so I knew the perspective they were going to take. But the way they play with that, I've heard some people argue about it. The way that you get that POV perspective and what they do with it throughout the movie. Nah, there is a cut that they do from the POV that honestly made my heart sky. I was like, whoa, what? Can you do that?
There's like,
what does this say now? Considering
cuts.
The form.
There's 5. Like they do it so much where I'm like, oh my God, that's the best editing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Editing is impeccable. Cinematography is incredible.
Apparently.
And the story.
Yeah, the score. Apparently, it was really interesting. I saved for the Q&A, and he was talking about how it was kind of straightforward getting it made because they had apparently like cut together the entire thing before even like pitching it to like financiers and whatnot. And so, which is just amazing considering if you've seen the movie, it moves so kind of sporadically and like, it's not really the most like straightforward cut in the world.
Yeah.
But to know that it was all very like carefully planned and like a lot of that archival footage is so intentional, and it really reads like that when you're watching it. It's just everything feels in the right place, and yeah, it's such a incredible movie.
It's so artfully made, and that cinematography particularly, Art, maybe you have the cinematographer's name in front of you, is so remarkable in the way that it like, captures these little details. And oftentimes, like, you're watching a film and you want to have a complete picture of what's happening. There's people talking, there's movement in the frame, and you want to know what's going on. And I think they are able to somehow eschew a lot of those details in a way where you still have a grasp for the momentum of each scene, but you're honed in on the tactile parts that kind of bring you into the moment. Like the POV idea goes beyond just a gimmick and the way they film it, and they really, really just bring you into these scenes, into these memories, this history in a way that I've never quite felt with a period piece like this. Like my reaction when I first got out of it was like, it reminded me a bit of the Zone of Interest, in how like what they're showing you isn't necessarily what you are paying attention to or what you're looking at. Because the story is so much an oral experience as it is just like experiencing the collection of, as you mentioned, like both the archival material and the POV stuff. And it just has this really immense power over you by the end. I was so moved by how Ramel Ross puts this movie together.
Definitely. There's a specific bar scene that I'm not going to say anything specific about it. I don't want to take it away, but that was kind of like what sent me over the edge with this movie. Yeah, just like performances all around are really incredible. But that one actor, and I feel bad because I don't know his name and I couldn't find him like credited. He just steals the show in just this one scene. And just cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah.
For me, it was Anjana. I think she has had killer movies back to back this year. I really like Exhibiting Forgiveness. I did not think she'd be able to top that. There's a hugging scene.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And I was like, who are you thinking of looking directly into the camera at this point in time?
Right.
Because she was zoned into that.
Yeah, it takes that whole Jonathan Demme thing of like looking straight down the lens and does it in a way that feels even more personal than that. Like I've never quite felt that experience in a movie, and to get it contrasted with this story that is so painful and about these like really awful atrocities, but to almost like juxtapose it with these more moments of warmth, I thought was incredibly smart and well done. To me, this is the movie of the year. I think it's just such a valuable piece of filmmaking.
I've seen some people bring up in a twofer. One being, if you don't like POV movies, I think people are kind of connecting it the way you see found footage movies. I don't think this is like a hardcore Henry because of how much they move around there. This is very much a really great use of it so that you actually get their perspective, as a POV should be, for what they're going through. And especially the way they play with it from character to character. That bar scene alone, just that, like, once you see what you're supposed to see, or like Zach was saying, what you were imagining or thinking of, it plays off that way better than, if you want to call it the gimmick for hardcore Henry. But the second one was the form of it. Some people I've heard have pushback that having a POV perspective ruins the performance of the person whose POV you're looking at. I disagree, but I was curious to know y'all's opinion on that. Just no. Wrong.
I don't think so, because I think in a way it's almost like you're embodying them, and I get enough from the line deliveries that it didn't take me out of it. I think the performances are pretty remarkable, and plus there is enough jumping out around within scenes that I never really felt like I lost my place. Yeah. But for me, the magic of this movie is moments when like an actor is doing something, but you're instead focused on like a sliver of wall because that's like they're hiding behind it or something. And that really, you don't need to see the actor to feel what they're doing in that moment. As well as the fact that the actors were holding the camera for a lot of it. So even the way that the camera moves really like embodies the physicality and the perspective too.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, unlike hardcore Henry, it doesn't really, you kind of forget that it's POV at a certain point, which you guys were kind of getting at. And like you were saying, there does come a point where you get to see the actor's face and they can jump back and forth and do like a 2-person dialogue scene. And that's
crazy. Yeah.
That's the thing, is I'm like, it does the POV thing so creatively because it does at some points feel like a normal movie. Like, but you're still getting that same kind of intimate effect that you can get with the POV. So it's just such a clever film. And like you were saying, there's one moment where the character like looks down at the corner of like a room and like is like looking at the floor while someone's talking to him, and they like hold on it. And that, it's like, even though you can't see him, the fact that you're just looking down at the floor, it's like you can feel a performance in that, which is just so In what other movie can you do that? Where you're just looking at a floor and you're like, this is the best performance ever.
And that's the thing that Art's talking about breaking the form. Like there aren't really movies that have achieved some of the things that this one does.
Definitely. Yeah.
Good stuff. Decent picks. But our number one has to be Venom 3: The Last Dance. Out in cinemas now.
Karsten, thank you so much for jumping in late minute. I'm gonna let you bounce while we wrap things up. But
thank you,
always nice hearing
me
from you.
Enjoy the rest of the episode. Peace.
Yeah. Thanks, bud. You. All right. You got any more picks from Chicago, or is that it?
No, right there. No better way to close it out than with Nickel Boys. I think this one, I can't remember if I got a date. October?
But no, so it was originally supposed to be October, and then I think it did so well at the festivals that they pushed it into December.
I'm sorry, guys. The Chicago International Film Festival is to blame. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, I had it here as an October 25th release date. I am looking now. Limited December 13th, going wide December 20th. Too many movies on December 20th, bro. Like, literally, I don't think with the runtime on this, Brutalist, and of course, what else we got? There's some big movie coming out. Red One, you know, like, I don't know if there's just enough minutes in the day for all this cinema that's upon us, but this is definitely one you're going to have to put on your radar. One that we're going to be talking about all throughout the rest of the year. And it's going to be topping a lot of lists.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you responded to it. So glad Karsten responded to it. The second I saw this movie, I knew that it was something special. And I'm hoping that people respond to it the way we did, because it is, I think, a really incredible statement. I'm hoping this one goes all the way to some Oscars glory, personally.
It should. Or if it doesn't, that's on them, bro. Because even the last movie, like we were bringing up for the cinematographer, All Dirt Roads, that's one that's going to be remembered. There's a lot of movies that make it to the Oscars we do not remember. So it's more so like it's no longer a cosign. They need to pick the good films so that they can continue to show audiences like, yes, we know how to pick them. Like that's the bit. But shout out TIFF. Was this a TIFF?
Yeah. No,
shout
New
out
York.
New York?
Yeah. It was a Telluride, and then New York, and then Chicago.
And that's exactly what I mean. Telluride. I always look at that Telluride list like, nah, this isn't like putting it out there for it to be bought. This is a selective list. They're top of the year already that they're presenting to you. And Nickel Boys makes it even onto the most important one of the year, which is the Intercut one. So definitely let us know your thoughts if you were able to go to Chicago. What your favorite venue, movie, snack, whatever it was for you. I'm excited to see how they continue building it, because the mayor came in, or no, the governor came in, made it a national holiday, bro.
Shout out Pritzker.
Whatever that means, bro. We got it. It's I will be celebrating it on a yearly basis now as well. But shout out to Chicago International Film Festival. You can catch the list of all of this stuff down below over on our letterboxes. So you can add them on to your watch list as well.